Okay, so you're very, very welcome to today's session where I'm going to share with you the 7 secrets to a happy, healthy menopause and much, much more, guys, much, much more. I always ask people, are they ready to be the queen of their health? And if we've any men in the audience, the king of their health, because we can all change one or two things. For me, I'm very much into lifestyle change, as into doing fad diets or trying things this week and then moving into something next week. So just take from today's session what you need to take and come into it with an open mind. I know Carol gave me an introduction there, but just to give you a background, so I have my own business called the Queen of Health. I'm very, through my own health and wellness is how I got into nutrition. Always wanted to be a nutritional therapist and then got the opportunity to study. And like that, I love working with clients because I can share my own story and see how the body can actually heal itself from the inside out. So I'm a believer, like when clients come to me, they're usually, as we call it as nutritional therapists, they're in the rabbit hole. So they've gone through all symptoms and the body's been trying to warn them, and then suddenly everything explodes. My job as a nutritional therapist is to look at the body from the inside and how do we get you back out of that rabbit hole through lifestyle changes, through nutrition, through exercise. So I'm very passionate about the whole body and nutrition, but how, you can take different approaches to actually heal it. So if you're in the audience this morning and you feel, oh my God, I'm at the end of my tether now with different things that are going on, everything is reversible. All right. And hopefully from today's session, you'll get one or two things that you can say, okay, that's easy enough. I can try that. So I always ask the question is, when is the last time that you felt 100%? And when people start to think about this, it's like, God, I haven't been feeling myself lately. In my clinic, when I've got women that come into me that are late 30s, early 40s and beyond, it's usually when they're saying, I just don't feel myself. I look in the mirror, I don't see the person that I used to be. And anything that I try is just not working. So it can be a lonely space. And now that everyone is talking about menopause, perimenopause, it's fantastic because it allows it that it's not a hidden topic. It's now being talked about. But there's still women that don't understand what's actually happening to their body. Okay. So just let me give you some stats. By the time we reach our 60s, what would you say are the stats? Just have a little think. Out of 100%, what would be that percentage of people that could develop one or more of the degenerative diseases? So it's quite a high stat. It's 83%. So although people are living longer, they're not living a good quality of life longer. So people may be living into their 80s, into their 90s, but they're suffering with one or more of those degenerative diseases. They may be suffering with, hereditary things, but this can all be preventable if we take our health into our hands and we start to work on it. And it's never too late, never too late. But it's really interesting that, what we do, as they say, in our 20s, it starts to show in our late 30s. What we do in our 30s starts to show in our late 40s and 50s. Okay, so everything does catch up on us, but we can do things to turn back the clock, as I say. Okay, if everybody has a pen and a piece of paper, I'd like to do a health score. I do this with all of my clients, regardless of what they come to see me for. So I'm going to talk you through these questions. You're going to rate yourself, 1 being no and 5 being all the time. And you can be anywhere in between. This is private to you, so don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share with me, but it's private to you. And then it'll just give you an overview of where you are with your health. And then if you take some of my tips today, you might be able to start to bring that score down a little bit. Okay, so the first question is, are you tired most of the time? 1 is no, 5 is yes, or you could be a 4, 3, or 2. Would you say that you're overweight? 1 is no, 5 is yes. Would you say that you're prone to hormonal symptoms? So this can be anything from an irregular cycle, tender breasts, mood swings, bloating, can be anything. So 5 is yes, 1 is no. Would you say that you're suffering from dark circles or bags under your eyes? 1 is no, 5 is yes. And how is your memory or your concentration? And can I ask everyone just to put their mics on mute if you can? It'd be great. Thanks. So there's no echo. Okay, the next question then. Are you often feeling anxious or stressed? 1 is no, 5 is yes. Your skin, so your overall skin, is it dry and it needs that daily moisturization? 1 is no, 5 is yes. Okay, and we don't have to do you can do this on a piece of paper would be great, and not on this screen because I won't be able to take that off. And then this is really important, especially around hormonal health, is bowel movements. Your bowels need to move every single day. So if you say, well, I go for a bowel movement every second day, well, then that's 5. If you go every single day, you're a 1. The reason that the bowels are so important is that if we are going through perimenopause, menopause, it just means that those hormones are circling around the body. They're not getting excreted out. And that's where all these symptoms can actually be exaggerated. Okay. Difficulty sleeping. So this can be anything from, yes, I fall asleep, but then I wake. It can be night sweats wake me up. It can be anything. So if you have a nice 8-hour sleep without being interrupted, you're a 1. If you've anything else, then you're a 5. Okay. And then if you're feeling low or depressed, and this can be at different times of the month, 1 is no, 5 is yes. And a biggie that I see in clinic is bloating, indigestion, all around the abdomen. 5 is yes, 1 is no. So add them up, and then I'll share with you of where the ideal health score should be. Okay, so where we're aiming to get with your overall health score is 16 or below. Okay. I do this on numerous occasions. I've done many talks, and one of the funniest was a lady shouted out from the audience, and she said, "Get me an ambulance," because her numbers were up in the 40s, and that's normal. Okay. So what we're aiming for is for 16 and under. It's where everything's in balance, everything's in control. If you have scored over the 16, that's perfectly normal. Not to be alarmed, because everything can be worked down into that by making small changes in the body. So guys, as we go along, if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat box as well. If I don't get to them this morning, I'll definitely reply to them and send them back to Carol. So generally what people are starting to see when they do a health score is, yes, my energy levels are low. I can have certain cravings. It's like almost when people hit perimenopause, it's like the carb monster just comes alive, and it's all just carbs that people want. People can hit mid-afternoon slumps, there can be poor sleep, and then we're turning to caffeine. So you can see that as people do have symptoms, there's different things that can come up, and there's different crutches that we can go to. And caffeine is a huge one that people go to, and carbohydrates as well, the wrong type of carbohydrates. Okay, so now let's take a look at the hormones and how they're impacting the health. What I really want to do this morning is to give you a greater understanding of the why to what's going on. Like, as women, we put up with an awful lot. We put on everybody else's oxygen masks first, and we just think, sure, it's grand, it'll go away. I've had clients that don't come to me until, say, 2 years later, and I'm saying, what were you doing for 2 years? I thought it would go away, or I just put up with it. And that's what we do. And I see it all the time. So maybe you can relate to that as well. So when we look at food and lifestyle changes, these are the game changer. And as I said, it's not a fad diet. It's a lifestyle change that you're trying to implement. And a lifestyle change can take time as well, because as I said, you have those people that look in the mirror and go, where is that person gone? That can come back, okay? But it's not all about nutrition. It's also your mindset, and it's how we move our body. I noticed since we came out of the pandemic, people were working from home. People are still working from home, which is great, but we've become very sedentary. And I'll say to people, are you just getting up and moving your body for 30 minutes? And, you know, I'm looking out the window here. It's damp, it's dreary. It's the last thing that we want to do. We need to move the body for 30 minutes every single day to get that lymph flowing. And I'll talk more about that later on. But just think of this as a 360 picture. It's not just one thing. There's different elements that you need to work on to help support your body. Okay, so let me start to share with you the 7 secrets. As I said, I will be sharing with you a free ebook, which will have all of this in it, okay? All of this and more explanations in it for you to kind of take away, digest from today. Right, so let's have a little look at the whole term menopause, because it is a little technically incorrect, because this represents the end of the symptoms, okay? So it's at the end of perimenopause. The average age of menopause is 51, and you're officially reached menopause when you've had no periods for 12 consecutive months. So everything up to that is your perimenopausal stage, where the hormones are playing havoc within the body. And once women hit their 40s, they can typically gain, on average, 1 pound a year. So by the time they reach 55, they could be a stone heavier. And what I see with clients is that they say, I haven't done anything. I'm not eating anything more. So it's the hormones that start to play little games with us. But again, there's different things we can do, and we can stop that, because what people are really frustrated about, as they call it, the meno belly, this bloating and this extra weight, cellulite around the thighs as well. But there's certain things that we can do to help and support that transition. Now, we look at it another way. I love this, right? In Japan, they call the menopause konenki, right? And it has a completely different meaning. And I'm like, game on for that, as opposed to here in Ireland, sometimes we think, oh, it's the end of my life. I'm going into my 50s and game over. But it's not. It's the start of something new. And if we embrace that, if we change our mindset around it, like the Japanese, it can be a game changer, okay? So instead of the end of life, as Western women like to talk about, menopause in Japan is that renewal, where something new, and they're coming into a new phase of life. And I think it's a lovely way of looking at it. So let's break it down to what it actually means. So ko means regeneration or renewal. Nen refers to year or years. And ki describes the season or energy in some contexts. Now, I don't really probably have to share the symptoms, because everybody could probably say yes, yes, yes. Not everybody gets all of the symptoms, but a lot of people will get 1 or 2, maybe 3 or more as they go through their 40s, through perimenopause into menopause. Okay, and I'm going to take some of these symptoms and explain why they're happening. And that's the whole thing, is to always ask, okay, why is that happening? And when we get that understanding of the why, it allows us to approach it in a different way. The weight gain, all right? So this is the one that people are talking to me about. They're saying, I'm very frustrated. This is down to our estrogen levels, okay, because they start to decline. And that's where the weight, that 1 pound each year, starts to go on to us, especially around the abdomen, around the thighs. And as I said, you look in that mirror and go, what has happened? Okay. But through weight gain, if people are at that level and it's like, okay, I need to do something now, there's a whole thing like blood sugar balancing, the glycemic load. So it's not a fad diet, it's a lifestyle change where you're looking at how the foods start to increase your insulin levels and how they decrease. And within, say, 30 days of following this program, so you're not giving up anything, you're not giving up, you know, clients will say to me, do I have to give up the wine? Do I have to give up the chocolate? In a lifestyle change, you never restrict yourself. Because if you're going to restrict yourself, it's a fad diet and you're waiting until, okay, this is over in 4 weeks' time, then I'll have my wine. So it's looking at that. So you can Google blood sugar balancing, glycemic load, not glycemic index, and start to follow some of the principles on that if weight gain is an issue for you at the moment. Another one that I hear people talking about is, oh, my knees, they're so sore, there's inflammation. And then people are reaching for the over-the-counter medicines for this. But this is because when we have our normal levels of estrogen, they help to reduce inflammation. But obviously now, as we've mentioned, estrogen starts to decline. One of the big things that I'll always put into my clients' nutritional protocols is either a fish oil, or if somebody's a vegetarian or vegan, I would use udos oil. Using a tablespoon of this or a capsule of fish oil is a game changer. All right, it's a big game changer. If we look at our bodies, they're like engines. If you have a car, you're going to put oil in it regularly. But as a human being, when we look at our bodies, are you eating oily fish 3 times a week? Are you getting a portion, 25 grams of good fats every single day? Your omega-3s. So you really need to incorporate omega-3s every single day. By the time people get to me, they're probably so deficient in their omega-3s that I'll go in with a supplement like the udos or the fish oils. And it can take 4 weeks to 12 weeks for that to come in. But with joint pain, it really is, you want to reduce the inflammation in the body. And when you start to go in with your omega-3s, that's when you can really see the difference. I'm very passionate about omega-3s through food and through supplementation because they're an all over. So they look at heart health, hormone health. So although they'll help with joint pain, they'll also help with the hormones that are going a little bit wonky as well. They bring everything back into balance. Then the mood swings. So this is where we've got the 2 hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So they fluctuate, and this affects the serotonin. And you may, you know, yourself or your friends or somebody, you know, say, you know, I just walk into a room and I blow up that I have to go and hide for a couple of hours and then I could go back out. It's like a switch. All right. And it's completely normal because these hormones are just going up and down in the body as well. So we can be irritated. Generally, it can be coming up towards it. You still have a cycle, but it is there and it is normal. Okay. Then there's the loss of libido as well. This is the 2 hormones, testosterone and estrogen level. And this can be quite frustrating for people as they go through menopause. And libido, it does come back. When things settle down, everything does come back. And then we have sleep. So sleep is a huge one. You know yourself, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you wake up the next morning, you're reaching for the coffee. I've had clients that yesterday I was actually talking to someone and they say, I have 3 coffees before I leave the house, Nicola. And then if you've got your coffee and you've got that surge of you know, energy, then that will probably crash. You haven't had sleep and your body starts to crave carbohydrates, and it's the wrong type of carbohydrates. The body's very clever. It'll go, give me a Danish, give me a donut, because I need to get energy quickly and I need to get through this day. With the sleep protocol, so it's looking at sleep hygiene, we call it, and there's little things we can do. Obviously, there's hormones at play. Magnesium is a great supplement for calming everything down and for promoting a good night's sleep as well. And there's a lot of alternative herbs in the pharmacy and in the health store that you can get. But I'll always ask people to research and make sure that you're not looking at 20 different supplements. Take one, make sure it's working for you, and then move on to the next. But with sleep, little things that when we get into bed, a lot of my clients are scrolling at nighttime and they're shooting their cortisol levels back through the roof. So let me explain a little bit about the stress hormone cortisol, because we have a lot of hormones other than those sex hormones. So cortisol is the stress hormone. And when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol is naturally at a high level because it has to get us through the day. And as we then start to taper down and 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it starts to shut off because the body knows it's time for sleep. So let's just say it's 8 o'clock at night and you get that feeling, oh, I'm getting a little bit tired. There's two things that people normally do. They start to watch telly or a series and it's like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And the cortisol shoots back up. It's like an alertness. Or when we scroll and we see something on social media, it shoots the cortisol back up. So just try and have a look at what's your pre-sleep things that you're actually doing before you go asleep. Also, as well, another thing that I'll say for people to watch out for asleep is charging your phone beside your head. Don't do that. And always put your phone on airplane mode, because any of those, transmits different energies at nighttime, and you don't want that. If you've got a telly in your room, make sure it's turned off and it's not on standby. So again, sleep, we could do a whole morning about sleep, but there are a few things that you could try. And as I said, magnesium is a lovely supplement just to calm everything down. And also a Epsom salt bath is fantastic. I remember the very first time I had an Epsom salt bath, it was like I went into a coma of a sleep. So it's worth trying. It's that self-care piece of bringing it in that, and I know we're stuck for time, but we have to make time for ourselves, especially around this time. And it's like, okay, once a week, I'm going to aim for a 30-minute Epsom salt bath, maybe 1 or 2 drops of pure lavender oil. Another thing you can do for sleep as well is get your body moisturizer, put 2 drops of lavender in it and just massage it around the neck area. And that can bring on sleep as well. Then there's vaginal dryness. I was at a seminar there a couple of months ago and I was talking to one of the doctors about this. And it's something, again, that women will just say, okay, it's part of the process and I'll just put up with it. I actually didn't realize that people can actually see an osteopath where there's exercises for the vagina. Now, you're kind of going, God, I don't know if I could have people feeling around down there, but apparently it's a thing. And it's really important that we look after our vaginas, especially if there's dryness there. Because if somebody's having intercourse and there is dryness there, they can tear, they can cause bleeding, but then that can have repercussions of other things then as well. And that's why it's really important to use lubricants and look after ourselves down there as well. So let's have a little look at the what's actually going on. And I think visuals work great. So we have pre-menopause where we feel great, we look great, we can keep our weight at an optimum level. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm starting to see now a lot of things pre-menopause where people are trying for babies and there's a high, rate of IVF now is starting to happen too. So for me as a nutritionist, I'm kind of going, what's going on? So people are highly stressed. Lifestyle has changed, eating habits have changed, and it's having a knock-on effect pre-menopause too. But as we move into perimenopause, we start to have those irregular periods. I had a client that was telling me that she had that many irregular periods that she was doing pregnancy tests, quite regularly, because she's like, oh my God, am I pregnant? But it is a thing that, you can have the irregular periods. The night sweats, which can be horrendous for some people, where they'll actually literally, it's like they're just wake up in a pool of sweat. They have to get up and have a shower and then get back into bed. So that affects sleep. The weight gain, which we've talked about, those hot flashes, and then the loss of libido. And then as we move into menopause, so there can be that 12 months of no period, and then we class that we are in menopause. But then there's a whole nother side of things that can happen if we haven't looked after ourselves in perimenopause. Because of the difference in hormones, this is where we can see, people within their 50s, this is where breast cancer can happen, depression, there can be vaginal discomfort, where the bones start to be affected, and heart disease. So you will see some of these things starting to happen when people are in their 50s. Just to give you a kind of a graph, I know when I looked at this, you see, okay, yeah, that explains where the crazy moods are going. So pre-menopause, we've nice balanced hormones. In perimenopause, they're a little bit all over the place. And then we go into post-menopause where they start to balance back out. So things do start to balance. And just to give you another graph there as well from the transition. So perimenopause is changes in your menstruation. So this can be anything from 4+ years. Irregular menstruation can be 3+ years. And then your last period is then that 12 months, which brings us into where the menopause is established. And this can be 3+ years. And some changes can still continue through that post-menopause as well. Okay, so let me explain even further what is happening. And basically it is a roller coaster for some people when they have those highs and they have the lows. But hopefully from the last few slides, I've kind of shared a little bit with the hormones that are affected and why things are happening and that chemical imbalance that can happen in our bodies. Progesterone levels, these are falling rapidly. And people will stop to ovulate. I always say that if you are going through perimenopause, use one of those free apps. There's one that I use called Flow, F-L-O, and it just allows you to monitor that if you are, having a cycle and then it suddenly stops, you can see, then you have a pattern of, okay, that was 28 days. Oh, that was 24. Oh, I didn't get a bleed. And just so that you're on top of it as well. And your ovulation. So these apps will let you know then as you put in your first day of bleed, it lets you know when you should be ovulating, where you should be having that discharge like an egg white. And then if you're not ovulating, it's a great way to actually then gauge and know, okay, I didn't ovulate this month, and you just keep a gauge on what's actually happening then as well. So although estrogen is likely to be decreasing at this time, it is falling at a slower rate, which can mean then sometimes we can have estrogen dominance in the body. And this is a ratio of too much estrogen to progesterone. And that's what's causing all of the typical symptoms that we see. And there's certain things as well that I'm going to share with you now as how you don't want to be estrogen dominant. You want to have a balance. So you don't want to be on a roller coaster. You want to make sure that you just, you're level. And this is what I spoke about, the stress hormone cortisol. So this can also increase, and we have to be really, really mindful of that if we are under stress, if we are drinking more than 2 cups of coffee a day, we're increasing our levels of cortisol. Now, our cortisol, the stress hormones, it's all around the adrenals, which sit on the kidneys. And if anyone's experienced burnout, that's not a nice place to be. It's almost as if the adrenals are firing out, the stress hormone all the time. And if we don't listen, if we don't take self-care and time to just take time out for us, this is where burnout happens. Those adrenals become like peanuts. And it's a very long process to get back to feeling normal as well. There's a food supplement that I recommend for my clients, and they're called adaptogens. And adaptogens attach to the stress hormones in the body and they bring them out. Now, you may have heard of them. There's 2. There's one called maca and there's one called ashwagandha. All right. So you can get these in the health food store. I like them in the powdered form. I put them into my smoothies every morning. I don't use both. You can, research and have a Google of them. Ashwagandha is very calming. Maca is also very calming, but works more on the stress side of things. So just to be mindful of that. If you are drinking coffee, I love coffee myself, so I'd never take it away from anybody. It's to make sure that maybe come 2 o'clock that you go on to caffeine-free or herbal teas. And that's a lifestyle change as well. That can be quite a tough one to do if you're used to your 4 o'clock coffee to keep you going. But just again, taking everything that I say and just seeing, okay, what can I actually do? What can I actually do that's going to move me forward and make things a little bit better for me? And obviously I have here as well that everything, it's like pieces of the jigsaw. So we start to go stressed, we take out a piece of the jigsaw, which then, you know, makes sleep a little bit not happening in the body. And then this can lead to weight gain as well. Stress and not having a good night's sleep will all affect weight gain too at any age. Now, another thing that I see in clinic as well is that thyroid issues may come up for people as well, because the thyroid hormone, this starts to come under pressure with the mood changes. It can have, you know, weight increase. I always will say to women, well, you know, early 40s right through, go and have blood tests done by your doctor. Make sure you get a full panel of thyroid and like your B vitamins, your blood sugar balance. There's a panel that you can get done. And it just really gives a bigger picture of what's going on. But people may never have suffered with thyroid issues, and then they may, as they start to go through perimenopause, have an underactive. They may get Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease that can be brought on by everything that's going on in the body. So it really is a time to take care of ourselves. Go have that MOT with your doctor once a year, once every 2 years, but do put yourself first and make sure that everything is balanced as well. And it's a great way to see vitamin D levels as we come into winter. Some people suffer with seasonal affective disorder, SAD syndrome, because we may be going to work in the dark. We may be in an office that hasn't got great light, and we may be going home in the dark. And that's where D levels start to diminish. I find when people take a supplement from October to the end of February, their energy, their mood, everything starts to be on a level par, and even their immune systems are supported as well. Okay, so let's get into the secrets. Okay, how are we doing for time? Good. Okay, so secret number one, what you eat. So I'm really, as I mentioned earlier, I love the whole nutrition. I love how you can put certain foods in. I spoke about estrogen and estrogen dominance. If you can get phytoestrogens into the body, the likes of chickpeas and lentils, and I think I have a slide to show you how to do that. That's exactly how you can reduce those estrogen dominant levels within the body. The blood sugar balance is a big one as well for people to really get on top of as well. And really, we want to nourish. I see people that I work with that they're overfed and undernourished. I'm very much into fresh fruits and vegetables. And when you start to do a food diary and you kind of go, oh, well, I only had one piece of fruit today and 2 vegetables. We should be aiming for 9 a day. 2 to 3 fruits and the rest vegetables. They should be the star of the show. But when we start to, you know, look and see, they're not being the star of the show, and they're the ones that are really going to bring your body back into balance. Great way to get them in. I love, I came up with a formula for my clients, my Funky 5 smoothie. I'll share that with you as well. I'll give you a little link to some recipes. It's a great way when you're on the go, but it's a great way of getting, say, greens in, your maca, your ashwagandha in, and to start to feel energized too. And it's a small change. So the mood swings and food. So you should be looking at B6, B3, and C. So obviously, yes, you can go and take supplements, but when we're looking at foods with that B6, the Bs are huge in our diets. Now, let me explain. If you're stressed, the B vitamins are depleted. The cortisol just gobbles them all up. So even if your diet is healthy and you're going through a stressful period, you can feel tired and run down because your body's not converting your Bs into what it needs to, into energy. So I'll always say to people, if they are going through a stressful period, supplement with a B complex, okay? But B6, very important. You can get this in your greens, your leafy vegetables, shellfish, your poultry, your nuts and food. And also we need to look after our microbiome, our gut health, okay? We need to make sure that that's on top, because for immune system, for hormones, that's really, and having a diverse diet allows you to nourish and repopulate the good bacteria as well. The B3, so another B, fish, poultry, eggs, whole grains, so your breads, then your nuts and mushrooms. Now, foods that are high in vitamin C would be your oranges, your melons, your strawberries, even broccoli, sweet potato, and spinach. And people don't realize, like generally with vitamin C, we'll go in and we'll supplement with vitamin C when, oh, I have a bit of a tickle, I think a cold is coming on, I'll go in. Vitamin C should be taken all year, as opposed to a preventative. And one of the hidden gems of vitamin C is that it's antihistamine too for people. So anyone that has any flare-ups like that, vitamin C can help to reduce that as well. So yeah, the phytoestrogens, these are great ones to get in, right? So I love to do, say, a chickpea curry for the family. They're not, you know, I'm vegetarian, my daughter is, but my husband isn't, but he'll still have a chickpea curry. It's all about the spices and how you make it. But even oats is a phytoestrogen food, pears, carrots, black seeds. So if anybody marked themselves as a high number on the bowel movements, if they're not moving every single day, a tablespoon of milled flaxseed, whether it's on your porridge, in your smoothies, I guarantee your bowels will start to move within a week regularly. But you need to be drinking your 2 liters of water a day with that as well. The stress, so I've spoken huge amounts of, you know, how do we actually manage that stress? It comes back to mindfulness. It comes back to, can you meditate? I get it, not everybody can, and we're very, very busy. I say start with, even if you put the kettle on in the morning and you just gaze out the window for 1 minute, 60 seconds, you're literally going into mindfulness. Because think about, even when we have our lunch, our dinner, we're either watching telly, we're chatting, we're constantly just thinking of what is next. Or I say to people, I always get, you know, I don't have time, Nicola. Say, okay, when you're in the shower, take 10 minutes, get a nice body wash or scrub, and just make sure that, you know, you just take that time out, or even just standing there and letting the water just run down and just breathing. It's just catching up with that. Okay, so we've done that one. And then the exercise. So exercise, as I mentioned, trying to move the body for 30 minutes every single day is a great one. I get it that we are busy and it's very hard to do that. I've set a challenge in one of my private communities of 10,000 steps each day. And that means, you know, from the time we get up to the time we're about to go to bed, I'm even finding that hard to hit. And I'm like, God, oh my, only when we start to gauge that on average 5,000, 6,000 steps. But one of the key things that I think can change a woman's body, and especially around this time, especially to prevent osteoporosis, to increase your growth hormone, which, you know, allows us to age better, to look better, is weight bearing exercises. So lift, you know, Pilates, going to the gym, lifting weights. It's not going to make you, because we don't have high levels of testosterone, we're not going to gain huge muscles. We're just going to tone the body. But with anything that's weight bearing, it just prevents osteoporosis. It stimulates that growth hormone and reduces inflammation in the body as well. Now, if you have to do the right exercise, you have to find something that you love and that's not punishing. So it's not saying, right, you know what, I'm actually going to go and do a marathon. You don't want to put the body under excess stress, because it's going to then decline your immune system, and this is where then you become run down as well. So find something that makes you smile, makes you want to go and do, and start from there. If you're kind of listening now and going, God, I'm not even moving my body 30 minutes a day, start with one day, put it in the diary, lunchtime, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk, or maybe it's 10 minutes, but just something that makes it a goal that's realistic for you. Now, toxic chemicals. I know since this morning, from the time I woke up, you know, makeup, deodorants, I've probably put 50 different chemicals on my skin. I've probably, you know, from in the car, you're inhaling toxins. We have to be very mindful and careful of the amount of stuff that we're actually doing as well. Look out for the parabens, the sodium lauryl sulfate. any of those things that are in the products, and how can we change them? That because some of these get into the system and they mimic hormones, and that's when they can have an effect. I had one lady that she was just using a false tan once a week, and she noticed that when she used this false tan, for the next week, her hormones were all over the place. So she switched to an organic brand and she was actually okay. So yeah, just be mindful of those things too. So it's not just the hormones that are going on inside, it's what's affecting them through the chemicals that we're eating. So anything that's processed, I always say, if you're going down the shopping aisles, the outside aisles where you've got your fruits, vegetables, meats, proteins, your frozen fruits and vegetables are all where we should be shopping. But then we kind of get consumed by the middle aisle, that anything that's in a box, if it's got more than 3 or 4 ingredients, start to read. And if you don't recognize them, I normally say longer the shelf life, the shorter ours. So just again, be mindful of what's we're putting in. So more fresh fruits and vegetables as well. I've spoken a lot about the sleep, and maybe it's something that we all need to work on as well. And that, if we're in a habit of not going to bed before 10, that's a big lifestyle change to make. Our body, between 10 and 12 is like a great period for our bodies to rejuvenate. Most of us miss that because we're not getting into bed till around 10 and falling asleep by 11. Each of the systems in the body will actually regenerate at nighttime. They'll detox. So when you wake up in the morning, you're naturally dehydrated. And a lot of us will go straight to the coffee machine, where we should have a glass of water and then have our coffee. So as I say, hydrate before you caffeinate. All right. So just be mindful of that. That could be one thing you take away from today. I'm going to wake up tomorrow, have a glass of water, and then I'll have my coffee. Okay. And then just the last secret then to share is that, if you are going through a lot of things and you say, do you know what, Nicola, I've tried everything. It's reach out to a professional, talk to them and see what changes, because sometimes it's good to be accountable. And then there's other things that you can, chat to your doctor. Maybe there's different things that they can recommend and support for you as well. Okay, so let me just hit the stop record button for now.